Hello folks! Today is Tuesday, December 12th, 2023. My name is Tudor Vodov and this is the 15th episode of Keeping It Realistic, a show in which we together go through all the projects that have been posted in the Chaos Campus Facebook group within the last week, talking about their strengths, but also pointing out their weaknesses and suggesting eventual ways to improve them. I see Alan on board. Helen, welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Hi Sebastijan. How are you folks? How has your week been so far? Did you have a good start in it? Talking about weeks, we actually only have 2.5 to the end of this year because we already have mid-December. Hi Alessio, Wucho. Hi folks. Not sure how it is on your side. At least here in Europe, more specifically here in Germany, this time of the year, like the last few weeks of December, usually are some very chaotic and stressful time. Because on the commercial side, it's usually the clients suddenly trying to finish all of their projects at once. At the same time, on the personal side, it's like preparing for all the holidays, especially with kids. It's like, there has to be good stuff under the Christmas tree. Everything needs to be festive and decorated and so on. And everything happens all at the same time. And it's usually quite the stressful and chaotic time. So when Christmas comes, which is like the first Christmas day, which is December 25th, it's usually the day that I enjoy the most, and it's not really for that much for religious reasons, but way more for just having all that stress left behind, having dealt with all of it and having finished it, and then just being able to take a rest. So yeah, gladly let me know how it is on your side. I know that some of you probably don't celebrate Christmas at all, but I assume, the New Year's at least. So yeah, let me know how it is. Is it a stressful time for you? Is it just like any other month right now? I see Fernando join us, Abderrahman. Hey folks. Yeah, before we move on, let's take a second. I will remove myself here. Let's take a second to appreciate today's cover image. It's a really, really nice composition. By the way, we have this one central element, and then we have these two side images, which with their diagonals actually visually lead to this central element here. So yeah, it just turned out to be a really, really cool composition in this case. The images that made this nice cover image possible were contributed by Alessio, Amjed, and Sebastijan. So congrats to all of you. Really nice works. I will remove this one. In the beginning we talk about general stuff, announcements, news, just interesting topics. I will remind you of our monthly challenge, which isn't only for December, but December 2023 and January 2024. So it ends, deadline is the end of January 31st, 2024. And the topic is winter in the city. On the last show, I talked a lot about it. I even showed you some examples while introducing it. In the meantime, we have this official announcement in the group. It is a fixed post so that you can always easily find it. By the end of the description, all the info that I just told you about, you can find in the text here. And by the end, there are some hopefully useful links. The first three, it's Unsplash, Pexels, and Pixabay, which are sites where you can find a lot of high quality, really good photos that may inspire you or that you can use as a reference for your work. Then we have a link to Abdi's Tyflow snow simulation. You remember this one probably. If you want to know how he did it, reach out to him, ask him, because it looks really, really, really good. Additionally, we also have Janita's snowy car texture. It was also very, very smart workaround in order to achieve this frosty look for a car's texture. So you can maybe take a look at this. Janita very nicely describes how he achieved this effect. And once again, though, I mean, I just show you these two links with some snow to them. But again, this picture that you see here in the corner is exactly as wintry as this one here. You know, it's not about snow. It's about trying to get the viewer to experience this coldness and this winter weather. So you don't need snow for that, but you need to make it perceptible in a way. And I think enough about this topic. In another news, something very, very cool, the Archviz Masterclass with creative lighting. Our dear friend Nikos Nikolopoulos had its first class last Thursday, December 7th. It was, if I'm not mistaken, it says here, December 7th. There was really a ton of people attending, like more than 2,000 people. This is really, really amazing. The feedback is overwhelmingly positive. If you take a look at this, I'll just scroll up. You see, I enjoyed the class, so inspiring. Here, Maceo just shared that he's also attending. There are a few posts on this topic. Here you see people thanking Nikos for this amazing class. So everyone who attended seems to love it and eagerly wait for the next session, which is going to be on January 25th, 2024. In a show before that, I will try to remind you of this, but I guess you also get an email notification. I didn't attend the first one because, again, back in 2020, I actually attended the Creative Lighting Masterclass with Nikos. But probably for the next one, I will also be on board if I have the time, because I really enjoy his presentations. I enjoy how passionate Nikos is about this topic, and it's really kind of inspirational to me and motivational for me to just hear him talk and show stuff. Also, when it comes to learning, today, directly after our show here, at 6 p.m. Central European Summertime, we will have Tom Grimes, Corona's project manager, who will introduce us to the innovations of Corona 11 in a live webinar. I will definitely be there and watch it, because first of all, it is always great to have somebody who's at the source of the things, like in this case, Tom Grimes being a part, like the project manager of Corona, introduce you to something. And secondly, Tom himself is a very sound, genuinely great guy to have, and it's always a pleasure to just listen to his presentations and have him around. So yeah, yesterday I posted a link to the announcement in the Chaos Campus group. You can take a look at it. There is this link where you can book your seat. I will just now copy it and paste it in the group so that you can do this. And I hope that we all get to meet each other there, because it's again always great if somebody who actually has created something gets to present it and showcase it to you. So please don't miss it. Let's meet there after the show. I'll try to keep this one a bit shorter, so at most 1.5 hours, so that we have a half an hour between the two shows that you can, refresh yourself or do some work and then watch the other one as well. I see Thomas joined us. Hi, man. And with all of this being said, I think that we can actually now move to the very first project for today, which is a project by Alessio. As he puts it himself, another fast commercial work in yet another bedroom. This time the client wants a warm, wood-looking room with a large wardrobe compartment behind the bed. It's done in Cinema 4D and Corona 11, so the new Corona Tom Grimes will be talking about in like less than 2 hours. First of all, this is a great presentation. I said it last time with your presentation, and here again, it's another example of a really good presentation because it includes all the info that we need. So we know that it is a commercial work. We know that the software combination that it is done with, it is Cinema 4D and Corona. And we also know the background, what this project was about, which is this warm wood-looking room with large wardrobe compartment behind the bed. So it's literally 3 sentences, 1, 2, 3. I'm sure it didn't take Alessio more than 1 or 2 minutes to write this, but everything is up there. I tell you this because sometimes when I provide feedback with this show or in the VW Art Club, some artists reach out to me on a personal message and they tell me that, you see, they didn't have the time to write down a proper description. They're so busy right now. And I understand this and I respect this as well. But again, this thing here that you see, it's literally 3 sentences. Last time I asked Alessio, he said that it took him like a minute to write them. So I cannot really believe that you don't really have the time to write this 1 minute or 2 minutes needed to write those sentences. But again, they provide so much more information for me to properly review it, for others to also properly give you feedback or to just, talk about this project. So please do at least this. It is great and it is more than enough. Regarding the image presentation, it's not really varied, but it's more or less a study of this room, so it's understandable that it is as it is. So let's dive in and review it. We have this central perspective shot and then the angled view, which shows more or less the same. But in general, the design is pretty sweet. The color palette is very pleasant and warm as requested by the client, so this task is definitely fulfilled. The structured wooden wall looks really nice. I also enjoy very much that you actually partition it. So you have this larger partitioning and then the smaller one. I think it looks pretty nice. Like this bottom part belongs visually more to the bed and the nightstands, while this more fragmented part belongs rather to this wall art or wall installation, whatever this is. And speaking about it, this wall art here, first of all, it fits greatly, and it's not only in terms of color, but also of something that we call form contrast. Because what we have here, oh, it's a lamp, says Alessio. Yeah, okay, it's a lamp. Well, it's not, it doesn't seem to be turned on. If it's a lamp, then maybe turn it on so that it becomes visible, because at the moment it's more like a wall art or some kind of an installation. But honestly, regarding what I just mentioned, this form contrast, it's really, really good. Why? Because with these stripes here, the wooden stripes, we have this very, very strong verticality and directionality. And then atop of it, you have this form. First of all, you have this horizontal line. So we have a perpendicular line, which is a nice contrast. And then you have these rounded forms, which again are in great contrast to these striped lines. So it really, really greatly fits. And it's a great example of, again, what we call form contrast. Alessio says the lamp is turned on. Well, man, you shouldn't have said that, because it really isn't visible. I don't know which part of it should be turned on, if it's these metallic parts here or the round ones in the middle, but it doesn't look like it's turned on. Now, yeah, I mean, in terms of interior design, I would say that this one is some really interesting and nice solution, having this the closet as a separate hidden area behind the bed, instead of the usual standard wardrobe somewhere on this wall here. So it's always great to see something like this, even as an idea for an architectural concept, right? Modeling and material-wise, everything seems to be quite nice as well. The modeling really leaves a generally solid impression. There are maybe just a few small things here and there that can be improved a bit. First of all, it's the transition between the floor and the wall. You see, there is no real transition. But it's an easy solution. You have two options here. The first one is to just add a baseboard. It's like the most standard solution. The second thing you can do, it's like the more modern one, is to make a grout between the floor and the wall. Like the wall is overshadowing this floor. So you put the wall up a centimeter, and then you prolong the floor into the wall, and then you have this nice grout here. This is like the more modern looking solution if you want it, but the way it is now, it's a bit too rudimentary. Then as a second topic, we have this false ceiling here, which really looks detached from the actual ceiling because of the grout that we have here. Now, if this is a deliberate choice, if you wanted it to look detached, then it's okay. That's the way it is. But if not, the easiest solution to counter something like this is to use the Corona round edge material. I'll show you this. I'm sure all of you already know it and probably use it, but the Corona round edges material makes something like this. So if you have the same material on two surfaces, like in this case, it is usually what is done with the false and the actual ceiling. You usually have the normal ceiling, the concrete ceiling, and then you have this false ceiling underneath it. And then after you build the false ceiling, you paint both. So what you do while painting both is actually covering them with a layer of paint, which tends to actually fuse and blend them together. And this is what you see here with the concrete. So all you need is just to have a Corona round edges text map added to your bump in precise mode, because you see what it says here: Corona round edges can blend separate objects and mesh elements only in precise mode. So if you use precise mode, you can just we can have a very small radius, something like 0.2 or 3. It won't be very visible. It won't make you like a rounded corners, but it will blend everything together. Now, Alessio says, no, it's chamfer from Cinema 4D's deformer. Well, the question is this chamfer, is this grout here wanted or not? Usually, the way I know it, at least here in Germany, when you have a false ceiling, you don't want it to be visible or distinguishable from the actual ceiling. So in this case, you don't want such grouts to be visible. What you can do if you have chamfer on this construction here is that you can just pull it off up a bit and until the chamfer just disappears into the ceiling. And then if you have the round edges, you can just apply to it, and then this will blend these surfaces together. What do we have more? Is those 3 round spots here. They seem to have no actual lamp geometry in them. It looks like they're just some holes with light coming out of them. I think it would look more authentic and generally better if you had an actual spotlight in them. Regarding the assets, most of the assets that you have used are actually pretty nice. I really like them. You say the holes are holes and they're supposed to be holes. Okay, that's a bit strange, but why not? Regarding the assets that you have used, most of them are really good. I can see lots of Cosmos assets, which is great. This is what we have the Cosmos library for. However, these shoes here, they are not that great of an asset for a foreground. Sometimes they are this asset, so you can see them here up close. So, sometimes we have to rework our assets or just use an alternative. And remember, the Cosmos library is great. It's very convenient to use. It's great that we have it, but it cannot, and it also shouldn't, replace your whole asset library. So if you can use some of the assets, it's great, but make sure to also often invest into new ones. Because just imagine, like, we all use the Cosmos library mainly, then at some point we will start seeing all and the same assets in every interior, which will make everything look quite dull and uninteresting, right? So my suggestion or recommendation is to actually use the assets from the Cosmos library scarcely, like you use this one here. It's just among other stuff, it's there, it just fills a bit the shelf, but it's not very present. It's great. But these ones, first of all, they're not so suitable for foregrounds, and second one, again, they're very prominent, very recognizable as a Cosmos gallery library asset. So I suggest maybe go somewhere. Nowadays we have some great libraries which aren't that expensive, and buy some slippers. Sometimes there are even sets where you can buy like 5 pairs of shoes for the price of one model, so that you can diversify your asset library a bit. Material wise, other than that, everything seems quite good. I just stay at this scene because of the curtain material, which is an exception when it comes to quality materials, because I don't like it as much, because it resembles more a bride's veil rather than an actually useful curtain. Just imagine you have it at your home and it actually serves no purpose, because as transparent and translucent as it is, it actually doesn't serve a purpose. It doesn't hold back any light or something. So, but it's an easy solution. Just reduce the translucency on the material and then you're set. The lighting of the scene, it has some nice hierarchy to it. I like it. It's not like very especially atmospheric, but I think that because what you did here is less of a selling visualization but rather a study, I think that it makes sense that you don't go overboard with some very moody lighting, because this will shift the focus from what is actually important in a scene like this. The second shot, and on this one as well, actually, they definitely need some background though. And the easiest way to do this is just to use an HDRI. Just take some random HDRI, place it in the background, and then you can do whatever you want. You can use any angle. The HDRI is always there for you. It's just great. And if you don't want to have it that prominent, then just use some color correction on it and go up with the gamma value, go down with the saturation, and then it will still be there, and it will bring a bit more authenticity to the general image. And also all of your reflections will also look better, because they won't just reflect white, but they will reflect an actual something. But yeah, that's it on my side. In conclusion, it's a good work. Again, this is like a second bedroom of yours, the design of which you actually really managed to nicely sell through your visualizations. And it actually made me think how cool it is that we have that, like, without investing millions, we can actually give our rooms a pretty cool and interesting design, seen purely architecturally. Because if we go back at this one, I think it's really cool that we have this closet being completely hidden, so we don't have this usual wardrobe, which also defines the space very much with its presence. So in this case, sure, in order to make a closet which is actually usable and convenient to use, we need a certain depth to this and size to this bedroom. But if you have the size needed for something like this, this is one very valid and pretty cool solution. So yeah, cool project. Now we talked about Marceo's work. Obviously, he also attended this masterclass, and rightfully so. And we move on to something very interesting, a project by Simbarashi. I think it's his first one. He says, "Hey everyone, this is my shot at V-Ray exterior rendering. It's for an academic project. Feedback and suggestions will be appreciated." Nice presentation, short, but informative. Now, in future, gladly share also your 3D software. So, because there is V-Ray for, SketchUp, Rhino, Max, Cinema. So there are lots of options, and if you share the software that you build all of this in, it is easier to provide you with some feedback on how you can do this and that differently. And also, especially in a situation like this, you say it's an academic project, it's very interesting to know what it is all about. I assume it's about this building that we see here, but maybe it has also an urban aspect to it. Maybe it's like a study project. There is so much interesting info that we could have about this one. Regarding the image presentation, I must admit it makes me kind of curious to see more, to click on the images and see them in large. The first two angles are, they are very similar, but the third one adds actually some variety. And still, they're pretty consistently looking, so this is cool. Before we move in, Alessio says, thanks, you're very welcome, dear Alessio, looking forward to your next project. So, what we have here, we will go through these projects one by one. Small notice before we dive in is it's an academic project, so I assume it's not so much about selling this building. I don't think it's so much about photorealism. But yeah, let's just go through the images and see. First one, this is the street view, let's call it. I think that with this shot, Simbarashi actually made the most out of what he had, because if we quickly go through the other two shots, you see this is like the second scene. You can here already see that the model ends with his building more or less, and on this terrace view you see that like it's very stylized, very simple and rudimentary, like urban planning surroundings that we have here. But here, still going back to the first shot, you see that with what he had, he actually made it possible to make something which is actually quite realistic looking at first glance, which is pretty cool, to be honest. Framing wise, it is also quite nice, because the viewer immediately concentrates on this building. And the reasons for that are that the contrasts work. You see how this building with its ground floors and its skyscraper or the high-rise part are actually surrounded by bright areas. So the contrast on it works. And the second thing is the guiding lines. So let's quickly analyze them. You see that all the lines that we have here, the prolonged, easy to comprehend lines, that all of them, I'll start this one here, this is the one on the roofs, that all of them point to this building, which is very nicely done, actually. I also enjoy the urban feeling I get from this building or from this scene. It's lively, like there are people, cars, the drones, the trees. It's pretty urbanesque, and this is pretty cool. But obviously, as a whole, it is not very realistic. Like, first thing we see immediately is that the surrounding buildings don't have realistic facades. They are just like volumes, extruded volumes, which of course takes away all the realism of the scene. Now, if you wanted to go for a realistic looking scene, what you can do are a few things. First of all, you can, I don't know, if it's, let's say I assume this is like a study project of yours, and thinking back to my study years, usually the projects that we did on a certain location, we would, first of all, those locations were mostly near our university, but if they were further away, we would make a day trip there and actually visit the location and take a lot of photos to see how the situation actually looks like. So if you're able to do something like this, then you can, of course, especially nowadays with all the smartphones that make actually pretty good, high quality images, just make photographs of all the facades and everything around. Then you can stitch them together with the help of AI. You can also clean them. Years ago when I was doing stuff like this, when you had a photo, you often had some trees in front of where you need to place your buildings. you had some people, parked cars and stuff like this that you had to manually remove. Now with the help of AI, with the help of generative fill, for example, you can very easily remove somebody. Just let's say this girl, you can easily remove her with a few clicks. So if you have the photos of the facades, you can then just map them atop of these volumes that you have, and you can actually achieve very realistic looking facades this way. The other solution is to try your luck with AI. I mean, I tried generative fill on your facades and it didn't work at all. So, but I'm not sure if this is like the right solution in this case. Alternatively, you can try to extract this area. If you have it extruded in Google Earth, you can try to extract it. It's a bit of a workaround, but it's possible. And then you can try to turn the poor geometry that is extracted from Google Earth into good looking geometry with the help of Stable Diffusion. I mean, that's a lot, but there are some options. Also, taking a look at all the rest, like, you know, the modeling and texturing of the street, the curbs and everything, you see that everything is very rudimentary. Like, they're just plain surfaces, planes and volumes with really simple textures to them. So, you know, I think that given the essence of this project, you may want to actually consider going for a more generally stylized view. So let's say instead of having only the surrounding buildings being white, you can actually go a bit overboard with this and apply it also to the floor. You can use a toon shader where you just have dark contour on the edges. And then you can have the people just be silhouettes, the car just be silhouettes, the buildings as well, so that your building is the only thing that really, really sticks out. And I want to show you a few examples on such cases, or examples on how photorealism, that prove that photorealism isn't always the right answer. Abderrahman says, or just do a matte painting projected on geometry. Of course, you can do that as well. Really good. I really like the building, would greatly benefit from a high-end render. Yes, it could. The question is, usually, you know, back then when I was studying, our professors, especially while I was making my bachelor's at the Technical University, our professors partially really didn't allow us to do renderings, because they always said a bad render is always worse than some quick but lively sketch. And this is true. If you cannot make a good photorealistic render, like Abderrahman is talking about, like a high-end great render, this would obviously look cool with this building. I agree. But like, if you're a student and you suck at visualizing, which is very, very, very normal. We did suck at visualizing back then. This is why our professors didn't want us to do it, and they preferred some of these ridiculous Photoshop collages or just hand drawings. Then it's okay to take a different route, to go in a stylized direction. And I want to show you a few examples out of this. First thing that I described to you was the building remaining textured and rendered, and everything else having these toon optics to it. In this case, it's a drawing, but you can also imagine this thing just be rendered. But take a look at the trees in the back. They're just like white silhouettes, and you can still very much understand and comprehend the concept of this building without realistic environment to it. So please consider this. Photorealism isn't always the right approach. And if it's photorealism, it doesn't have to be a photorealistic, like real life simulation. And I'll show you two examples of mine. This one is a bit similar to the first image by Asim Barashi. You see, it's a street scene. What we did here is, on this project, is we actually simulated a wooden architectural model. You know these models if you studied architecture. During the conceptual phase, you usually use different materials, but for the final model, in order for it to look better, often wood is used. And then stuff like, streets and parking spaces and so on, they get engraved into it, and all the other stuff gets cut into form. But you see how with a scene like this, it is supposed to photorealistically depict such an architectural model. So you see that there are different approaches to visualizing, and what you need in the end is to make something which looks nice, which looks good to the viewer. So if you don't have the time, of course, as Abderrahman says, if you have the time, if you have the resources and everything to make a high-end render, to build all the facades, or to do, if you're good at matte painting and you can do all of this, do it, of course, why not? But if you don't, then look for a different approach, look for a different way. Again, in this situation, it's an actual project in a very small town in Germany. We didn't know much about what kind of materials are going to be used with a new public square that we have here. We didn't exactly know what type of trees are going to be planted there. So we wanted to remain a bit more generalistic with this. So this is what we did, and it actually very much shows the whole situation in a very, very proper way. Abderrahman says Ander Alenka has some really good examples of wood type of maquette renders. Yeah, of course, they are really, really great, because you see how this new public square with all of its functionality is actually nicely depicted in its own style. It's partially meant to be like photorealistic. You see, it's like on a table in this in a studio or something. You even see, the glass with the brushes and pencils in the back. So yeah, it's supposed to depict like something like a model photography, but still, it is still good enough to tell a story and to properly present the architectural concept, but it's not photorealistic. So thinking about the buildings that you didn't have the time to build the facades of, you see, I also didn't have the time, we didn't have the budget, it was a small project, and we made it possible that in the end the project still nicely sticks out and has its own atmosphere. Here, another example of such a project, we had this new building in this setting. It was winter, but they wanted a summer setting, so we couldn't even work with drone photography and collaging. So there were two options in front of me. Either really do everything in 3D, which would have taken ages, which would have been very expensive to do, or what we did here is just make something like a 3D model and just showcase this scene, and you see it's actually very understandable. You see the buildings, you see where the entrances of this building are, you see the form of it, you see the street, where the bus stop is, where the streets are, you see where the parking lots are, the park. So you see everything without spending tons of time. So again, try to think, be smart. Don't always invest all the hard work. Sometimes you gotta be smart and you can still achieve something new. And honestly, as the clients showed this image to their clients, people were really happy to see this, because they were like, oh, it's like a cool wooden model of the building that I want to buy an apartment in. It's so ecological. It's just good. So why not? They really liked it. But I'll show you different examples as well. I wanted to show you this one, which it's like a full clay model. It's even a clay animation, as you see it here. And it's actually really great. I think it still has a lot of atmosphere to it. It has a lot of, I don't know how to put it. It's just lively, despite being just so goofy and absolutely untextured. And if you look at, let's say, more stylized, especially when it comes to architectural projects, these stylized renderings are also very popular. And if you take a look at this one, first of all, the modeling here is quite basic. It doesn't have a lot of detail. The texturing, also quite basic. Textures look pretty flat. The lighting, a lot of it is done like the God rays, they're just done in Photoshop. The people, obviously not realistic. Some of them are transparent. All of them are desaturated. But this doesn't mean that this isn't one really cool looking image. No, it's not realistic, but it's still atmospheric. It still transports over the mood that is meant with this architectural structure. And this is what the whole thing is about. So don't get stuck in this, everything has to be photorealistic and every detail has to be there. Try to find the right way and the right approach to the project that you currently work on. This is all I just wanted to share with you. So let's go back after this small rant and take a look at the second shot. Here again, what we said about the previous one is also true here. It's just like, yeah, it's a different angle, but again, it's we see the end of the model, which obviously, while on the first shot we have this urban feeling because we were enclosed in this situation, enclosed by buildings. So we thought, okay, obviously behind this building there are other buildings. Behind the main one, this urban situation continues. Now on the second shot, we clearly see that it actually doesn't. So yeah, here again, you can use AI, generative fill in this case, to generate some background for sure. Or again, you can try going for a different just optics and a different approach to your project. Also, it becomes very visible that your building is pretty empty. And if you light it up more on the inside, given that you have an evening mood, it will become even more visible that it's empty. So you then have to either furnish it, which will be a ton of work, or use a parallax solution, which is, yeah, you can do it. This is a valid solution. Or you can rethink this angle and the lighting of it, and you can go for a day lighting with a strong sun, because this is when glass surfaces usually tend to become dark and reflective, and then it's not so visible that the interiors are actually empty. And yeah, one last thing, work a bit more on your scattering skills, because this thing here doesn't look good. Let me see what Abderrahman has to say. Oh yeah, this one is really good. The animations are something most of us kind of want to do. Sometimes the clay render looks better than the shaded one. Yeah, very often, honestly. I mean, sometimes I really get the feeling that I ruin my wonderful clay model with these stupid textures I put on it. Obviously, for a realistic, photorealistic, high-end final result, we need the textures. But clay models have a lot of beauty to them. So yeah, this one that we saw here, just take a look at those images. I mean, they still say a lot. I absolutely understand the building. I understand the urban situation. I understand everything around this project with this simple clay model, and I'm actually not so interested in the exact color of whatever the roof tiles are. Yeah, and let's take a look at the third shot. This is the terrace. This is generally a very good idea for an informative and exciting shot. So it has a lot of potential to it. But the current implementation simply isn't cutting it. Why? Because the idea of a shot like this is to present this public space terrace with a view. Now, if we look at the view, it sucks. First of all, it's not full. It's very simplistic. It's also an awkward mix of like very simplistic, but then there are some areas that are actually textured and have a lot of detail to them. So it just doesn't work. What you can do, again, if you have the current situation, if the city that this building is built in, if it is extruded in Google Earth, what you can do is actually try to place your camera at somewhere at this level where you have it here in your model, and then just make a snapshot of what you just, and export a snapshot of the view and then place it behind here. It will be way better than what you currently have. Or go for the stylized optics. Then you can have the city looking like this. But yeah, I think generally, to conclude this, judging by the building, like the detail I see here, I think that you're actually capable of a lot when it comes to modeling, also texturing and so on. But to make the most out of your skills, I suggest really working with fitting references in order to have a guidance while forming a clear concept on the way you will visualize something. Again, we just went through it. It's not only the photorealistic way. There is more than one rendered ways of presenting something. There are also drawings and so on. So try to have a clear concept what exactly you want to do and then follow through it. And with this being said, I think we can move on to the third work for today, which is an exterior by Sebastijan. He says, "Hello everyone, I would like to share with you one of my latest commercial projects. It was a challenge for me to model the building, probably the largest building I've modeled so far, but I also learned a lot during this project. I didn't use imperfections on the building on purpose, but I went all out in the surroundings. Facebook feedback would be much appreciated. Hope you like it. Software you use is 3ds Max, Corona and Photoshop." Great description, really informative, but it also very personal and relatable. Like if you had written what a lot of artists tend to do, like my last project, somebody who would go through your description would be like, oh, okay. But the way you have put it now, you say something like, yeah, this is challenging for me. This is the largest building I have worked on. This is something that provokes emotion in the people who read it. So if I read it, I'm like, hey, Sebastian, you know why? I understand you, man. I remember going for larger scaled buildings and projects, being a lone artist and being overwhelmed by it, but also feeling very good about myself and my skills as an artist after finishing it and actually successfully pulling the project off. So doing something like this, challenging yourself and then overcoming your fears and actually managing to pull it off is something which is very, very important for your self-esteem as an artist. It makes you believe in yourself more and actually be better. So congrats on this. Regarding the image presentation, it's very consistent. The angles are nicely varied, but it's also heavily contrasty. It really has very, very strong contrast on it. So let's review this work, starting with the modeling as usual. The modeling really looks quite good because you talked about it in your description that it is just a large building, and it truly is a large one with lots of different details. Just take a look at what we have here around the elevator. It's really good. So it's also not only the building that is complex, it's also the topography that also isn't the easiest. So I would say you really did a good job and you can actually be proud of yourself. Regarding the modeling, there isn't really much to improve on, in my opinion. The glass railings, you seem to have made them as a single plane, which obviously you will never have in real life, like a piece of glass with that size. So they will have some partitioning to them, and actually your image will also be profiting from that partitioning, because if you give your glass a very, very slight bump, something like 0.02 or 3, and you have this partitioning, and then you use UVW randomizer so that the bump mapping on each partition, each mesh of these polygons here is different, then you will have not this perfect reflection, which makes the render look like a render, but you have different reflections on each partitions of the glass, which makes for a very authentic general look. And the other thing that I find a bit maybe too simplistic and rudimentary are the windows here, especially the ones in this area. They're like, I don't know, maybe too simplistic. Maybe it's just the way the project is and the way that they're meant to be, but in my opinion, they don't look that great. Material-wise, I gotta start and compliment what you did with the parking lot here. It's a great representation of how a skillfully crafted material can actually turn an otherwise very boring and plain area into something worked looking at. Because just take a look at it. You have the parking lot markings, which already make it interesting. And then you have all of these interesting things happening on this texture. You have some edge dirt, and the parking lot is just not really nice to look at. It's just an asphalt parking lot. That's all. But with this texture, you actually made it look nice. So if you wish, gladly share some details on how exactly what methods and what approach you used in order to create this texture, because it looks really awesome. As for the other materials, the stone materials is okay. The facade material, you said you didn't use any weathering or dirt and so on purpose. I guess it's the usual clients wanting their building to look like it was just built a minute ago. I understand this. I don't know. In the meantime, I managed to convince my clients to add some dirt and weathering because it just looks nicer and it doesn't really have to look like a ghetto because of this. But yeah, it takes time, so I understand this. Not much to say. The glass material looks rather dark though. I don't know if this was meant to be like this, but it's kind of too dark in my opinion. And now let's take a look at the framing and lighting of both shots. Let's stay with the first one. You achieved some really great natural framing here. It's really, really good. You have the branches of the trees raging into the image, and then you have the shadows of the trees down here. So you have this very nice natural framing and the building being properly lit up and then being surrounded by this dark framing from the trees and their shadows. You say you agree with everything. Cool. That's good. So yeah, this one you pulled perfect. I also really like how the branches here follow the form of the building. It's really, really, really good. On the second one, the framing and the lighting don't work that good or as good as they do on the first shot, because like this time the building, the object of interest, is shadowing itself mostly. You see how these terraces are just throwing so much shadow that most of the building is actually in the darkness, while at the same time less important aspects like this walkway here or this part here are brightly lit up. So this time the lighting composition doesn't work, and generally this also is true for the first shot. There is an issue with your lighting being very strong and kind of even plump. Like it looks like you went with just some basic sun and sky and you gave the sun just the size of 1 or 2 at best. Oh, Roy joined us. Hello, man. So this, I don't like this as much. This makes first of all, for very, very strong contrasts for areas that are too bright, not too bright, you don't have overexposure, but very bright, and then areas that are really, really dark. So dark even that you actually lose detail in them. So if we take a look at these windows here, for example, it just looks like there is no reflection. They're just pitch black areas. If we take a look at the undersides of these balcony ceilings, it looks like they're completely pitch black as well. So yeah, what you did, you used sun and sky with a size of 1 or 0, right? I guessed it. Yeah, it's kind of visible. But yeah, let me show you something. So yeah, this is your first shot the way it is, and I went to Photoshop and played around with the darks especially. So you see, there is actually a lot of detail visible in the reflections here, and what purely was just a pitch black underside of the balconies actually is something that even has some lights or detail to it, but it's completely gone in your version, right? Here as well, there are also some details here that in the original are completely away. Same with the backside. You see, it just looks like the pitch black area, but if we take a look at it, there are some lamps or something. So yeah, you really... So let's say, okay, let's take a look at what you used. You used sun and sky. In cases like this, it's advisable to increase the strength of the GI, so the strength of the sky, and reduce the intensity of the sun so that you can avoid these strong contrasts and these very, very dark areas where you lose a lot of detail. If it was an HDRI, let's say it was an HDRI, then just connect it to a color correct map and then play with a gamma. So if it's a very sunny summer HDRI that you have with a strong sun and strong shadows to it, then play with add a gamma correct to it or color correct to it, and then make the gamma value be something like 1.1 or 1.2, and this will soften the light and the shadows. And on the contrary, if you have, let's say, an HDRI that you like, but the light it produces is too soft, you almost don't have shadows, then go with the gamma, go down with the gamma, so values like 0.8, 0.9, and it will make the light become more pronounced and the shadows become more sharp. Kirio says it's great to add a tone curve if this was done in Corona and boost shadows and darks as well. Sure, this helps a lot as well, but in this case, there is this general problem that needs to be solved before the tone curve, and this is like bringing some balance to the lighting. So again, you need to have your global illumination be stronger and your direct light, which is the sunlight in this case, be softer and not so strong in order to avoid this. Now, when it comes to the second shot, because it's a difficult one with these strong overhanging balconies, what you can do here is either go for some lighting mood which has a low sun, so something like sunrise or sunset, or even try an evening shot, because with an evening shot you won't need what you had in this first shot, where you had this dark tree crowns or tree branches and then the dark shadows making for this awesome framing. You obviously cannot do something like this in the second shot, so maybe think alternatively and maybe go for an evening shot here, and this way the building will be the one which will be illuminated and shining, and this usually is a good solution. And with this being said, this is some really solid work of yours, Sebastian, and you challenge yourself, and I would say you actually came out as a winner. Keep it up this way, and maybe just do some further reading on the topic of lighting exteriors. Kido says, I said that because this seems like an ACES issue to me. Yeah, sure. If you have check your ACES value. If it is 1, then reduce it. Check your LUT as well. Sure. Maybe first thing you do is just reset your tone mapping to a really default value, and then stuff like contrast, ACES, and so on. Then yeah, he says the ACES is on 1. Yeah, of course, then you have to reduce it as well. Yeah. So you got a few really, really good tips, not only from me, but also from Kirio here as well. This is always great when you folks in the comments are also active and also providing feedback or nice tips and so on. It makes us all grow and learn more, and this is really cool. Really enjoy this. So let's move on. We already talked about this one, but we cannot mention it often enough. Archviz Masterclass with Creative Lighting with Nikos. Just be one. Let us make this like 3,000 registrants, if this is pronounced this way, or even 5,000. Everybody can profit from this masterclass, I assure you. And then we have 2 quick announcements. First being for V-Ray for SketchUp and V-Ray for Rhino Update 2, which adds some advanced chaos scatter, better video frame buffer, features for more precise production control. We just talked about it, it's important. NMesh rendering on V-Ray GPU. Do you guys actually use NMesh rendering in your daily work? I must admit, I tried it once as it was new, but I haven't really used it since. It doesn't have to say anything about enmeshed. I just don't need it that much in my work because I mostly do exteriors. And also one cool thing is V-Ray for Grasshopper volumetric effects. First of all, V-Ray for Grasshopper, how awesome is that, right? I remember being a Rhino user and having Grasshopper, but I don't think there was V-Ray for Grasshopper back then. What I don't quite understand in this case is this promotional image here, because once you follow the link here, you get to this page which has this image, which I personally think is a lot better than the other promotional image. It has this awesome contrast lighting and it's just a cool scene, while this one here is a bit, I don't know, washed out, a bit, I don't know, old school. Not sure if this was the right promotional image for this announcement, but this is just my personal take. Then something cool for the Vantage users. Vantage 2 Update 2 is out with finally support for V-Ray displacement. I think this is something Vantage users have been waiting for a long time. Also support for V-Ray Fur, Hair Next Material, Ornatrix, Hair Farm, and XGen. So when it comes to making carpets and all the displacement stuff, of course, now Vantage 2 got your back, which is awesome. I really, really wish that someday we'll have this for Corona as well. As a next, we have Amir sharing with us the power of AI. I see Sebastijan saying, thank you, this is one of the rare projects I will go back to. I will try to remember and implement everything said. I felt like something is off but could not figure out what. Now I know. Yeah, there were tons of good tips, and the good thing is the show is recorded, so you can get back to it. You can pause it whenever you want. Follow the chat with Kiro's tips, follow what I say, and I think you can make more out of this project because you have already put a lot of really good work into it. Simon says, would it be possible to create a roof with tiles using Enmesh? I tried it once in Rhino, but the tiles had holes. Well, this is a really interesting topic. Maybe we should try it. Why not? But I cannot tell you now. But it's a really interesting question. I'll think about it. So back to Amir. The power of AI. This time I discover a new way to furnishing and making realistic render with a specific style within 1 minute. It's not 100% accurate, to say the least, but it's amazing. You can find my other work here. Now, this is what Amir started with, and this is what AI gave him. Now, to say that this is not 100% perfect is really something, because this is not even 50% perfect. Just look at the reflections and the window frames and the shadows here, and what about the TV? But it still is, as I think it was Konstantinos in the comments who pointed, like, this is a great workflow for generating ideas. And this is where I very much agree with Konstantinos and Amir as well. Like, you have this room, and let's say your clients say, you know what, I want like a coastal or beach house style, and you can just feed it into AI and say, hey, give me a few suggestions, and then AI gives you this, which actually is very much resembling a beach house interior. So seen like this is a nice way to generate an idea for this space, and even in this particular angle. So yeah, this could actually be useful. And to you, Amir, if you share something like this, please make sure to also be a bit more specific. Like, you say the power of AI. In the meantime, we definitely don't have just, this one AI so that everybody immediately knows what you're talking about. In this case, I saw this logo in the corner. Somebody asked you and you also kindly answered. It's Home Styler, whatever this is, haven't tried it. But I mean, it's okay. Again, experiments with AI, if they're clearly announced like as such, are very welcome in this group. If AI can help us enhance our work, why not? But if you experiment with it, be very specific about which AI project or solution you used. Also, did it work out? Yeah, like, did you just prompt something and this is one of the results, or can you maybe, let's say, take a look at this chair and see that it looks awful, and then just maybe select only this area and try to make a more realistic chair? Is it even possible to make a realistic final result, or is Home Styler just a solution for providing some, I don't know, inspiration or reference? So if we experiment with something and want to share it with others, this is great. What Mir does in its core idea is great, but in order for it to actually be useful, please also share more information about, again, which tool exactly, how did you work with it, how was your experience, was it easy, was it difficult, is it paid, what are the limitations, and so on, so that we can really go through it and know, oh, this is an option for me, or this is nothing for me. This is just the way it should be, I think. As next, we have Konstantinos. We just talked about him with his video. I won't be playing the music because of licensing possible issues, but the video is pretty sweet. I really enjoyed it. The music as well. It's visible that on this mesh mastery course, this that Konstantinos is offering, what is done there has a lot of high, precise quality to it. By the way, if Konstantinos, if you listen to it, does anybody from the group actually join? And you in the comments, do you consider joining this course? He says here, hey, happy to be posting here again. I want to share a short animation we did for our masterclass. They're supposed to have an increasing 3D modeling difficulty level, which in my opinion makes a lot of sense. So one can start from zero and build up on his 3D modeling skills. Everything was modeled in Max and rendered with Corona. It's also a Corona animation. So what I really like about this is that you don't only seem to learn how to model, but also how to nicely present your work with a video like this, for example. So yeah, good riddance. And let's move on to one really interesting project by Amjed. He says, hello, a dining hall with a living room. I hope you like it. Software is Blender and Psychos in this case, so I cannot help with much advice, but well, we'll see. So the description is okay. We know the software combination. We know the spaces depicted. Especially with a project like this, which is obviously a bit unique and different, it's interesting to know, is it, what type of project is it? I assume it's not a commercial one, but who knows? And also, why? Like, what's the story of it? So please gladly include such information in future. Regarding the image presentation, it's actually quite nice, makes me want to click on these images because they really make me curious. So let's do so and go through the images one by one. So we start with this central perspective showcasing the dining aspect of this concept. It looks cool. To me at least, it looks cool. It's pretty unique. It's different than what we are usually used to see, especially if somebody says like, yeah, present to you dining and living room. I immediately already have an image in my head, but this is not this image, so it's a nice surprise, to be honest. The lighting and composition are actually auch quite exciting and cool too. Now, technically seen, from a technical point of view, the whole thing doesn't make that much sense though, because first of all, we have this opening in the ceiling here with no glazing whatsoever, no skylight. So every time it rains or snows, it will mess up the whole dining area. Then the bar stools seem to be way too high for this table. So there is not enough leg space between the sitting area here and the edges of the table. And regarding this torus here around the ancient bust, I'm not sure how this is pronounced. It's a bit weird, yeah. But on the other hand, it's art. Like, we can argue forever. Art is very subjective, so leave it as it is. It's just maybe weird to me, but it makes a lot of sense to others. There also seems to be, just technically speaking about the rendering, there seems to be some anti-aliasing issue on the lamp, so maybe you want to check this out. But let's move to the second shot. And the second shot is actually probably my favorite one. It's a pretty sweet image with beautiful depth of field, nice tone mapping, good colors, color palette to it. It's a pleasure to look at. I like it the most out of all the images of this set. Then we have the third one. It's the living room, this central perspective of it. Now, the general idea of a dark, gritty, coldish foreground, and this being in contrast with the bright, warmish background area in the back is actually pretty good. It's a good contrast. Also, the image in general has some nice clarity to it, even in the dark areas. But the angle is not very wisely chosen, to be honest, because it very much shows that the design of the space really isn't well thought out. Because like all the important areas, like the dining area and the sofa here, they're cluttered together, so much so that you actually don't really have space enough to pull back this chair from the table. But at the same time, this right corner of the room is completely empty and nothing happens there. No light, no furniture whatsoever. So this obviously doesn't make a ton of sense. Technically seen, I'm also not a big fan of this carpet's appearance. It looks kind of very rendered to me. Now, again, I'm not an expert on Blender, on Psychos, but a little search showed me that there are some nice tutorials where they achieve, in my opinion, more realistic looking carpets, fuzzy carpets like the one that you have, like this tutorial and this one. So I will probably share the two links for you to just have, maybe get inspired by them. I'll send them in the chat. Also, what I found was this thing. It's also for Blender version 3.5, which looks really authentic, really realistic. So yeah, we don't say authentic and realistic in one word because it becomes autistic. It's not good. But yeah, maybe check these references. Maybe they help you achieve a better final result when it comes to such rugs and carpets. The fourth shot, it's the central perspective where on the left we see the living room and here the dining room area. The lighting is kind of cool and cinematic, but again, it's difficult to see this as like a real, relatable dining and living room concept. It rather appears kind of random, right? The fifth one, it's very similar to the third shot. Just this time, we don't see that much that the rest of the room is empty, which is a good thing. But on the negative side, the composition doesn't work as well with this one because we have this very empty, boring foreground, and also all the main and important elements are crammed together and are, covering each other, so you don't really see them as well. Then the sixth shot is this close-up of the chair, which actually has a very nice framing to it with a good focus, really good depth of field on the plates here. But the current lighting scenario doesn't play along. So if you manage to get some light onto the chair as you have it here already, then it would be one really, really good looking shot. But the way it is now, the lighting composition just doesn't work. Then we have the seventh shot, which is the living room central perspective zoom, which to me is like a better version of this shot. And actually, what I like about it, it has this nice depth of field to it. It's quite cinematic when it comes to the overall appearance of the shot. The foreground is pretty nice. The contrast to the sunny area works as well, but in this case the focus is kind of unclear to me. So where should I be looking at in this image? What's the eye catcher? What's the main actor here? I don't see it. Then we have the 8 shot, and now it's getting really down here, to be honest, because here it looks like you again wanted to maybe concentrate or focus on this chair, which would have been the right thing to do, if not the tableware here, the plates. This is where I would have put my focus on, with maybe a bit of a lower camera. But now your focus is actually on those whatever wall pearls or whatever these are, which doesn't really make sense because they're very much of a background. So this one doesn't work at all. And this one is probably my least favorite shot because there really is no visual excitement to it. The contrast that you had between, the bright areas and the cold ones and the dark ones isn't here anymore. The lighting is just flat. The composition is not really interesting and generally doesn't add much to the set. So let's finish and come back to the first one. It's cool to see an artist think out of the box. I always appreciate it. It's also great to see somebody do things differently, approach things differently. It's also always good to try out new stuff. So congratulations on that. But while doing so, always try not to forget the basics and common sense, right? So topics like functionality and implementability, especially with something which isn't too futuristic or something, are important and relevant always. Same with the general photographic rules of composition, lighting, and so on. So by seeing your work, I genuinely think that you have the skills to pull off very nice looking projects, but just try to channel your creativity and motivation into better thought out and concepted and clearer concepts. This is what I would recommend you. Before I move on, let me see, Simon said something. He says, I have already joined the Mesh Mastery course. It looks promising, but I don't have the time to watch everything because I'm always busy working on Rhino. I hope soon I could slowly learn and work with 3ds Max, as I always am afraid to change the software of my workflow due to deadlines. Yeah, I very much understand you and agree here. I went through it myself. I went from Rhino to Max. I can tell you it's possible. I can assure you it works, and it will be a change for the better. Not because Rhino isn't great, because, let's let it be said, last version of Rhino I worked with was Rhino 6. And back then there was no Vantage. So V-Ray for Rhino wasn't as advanced as it is today. Rhino didn't have as many functions as it has today. So maybe nowadays this switch isn't that necessary. My main reason for switching was actually that it was really a huge waste of time, because there weren't so many assets for Rhino out there. It's like what was on Flying Architecture and occasionally some stuff on CG Trader or TurboSquid. But yeah, everything was also very expensive, and every model that I used was in OBJ format or FBX format. So every time I had to actually retexture it from scratch, which was a huge waste of time. So in order to avoid that, I thought I would just switch to Max, which has tons of native models being sold for good prices. And yeah, Corona just came with a course that I booked back then in order to learn it. But yeah, Rhino is great. I really occasionally still use it to this day for some cat oriented stuff, or to clean up the cat plants that I get to work with and so on. So yeah, but it works. In the beginning, it's really awkward having to eyeball everything when you come from software which is so precise, CAD-like precise as Rhino is. But with time, you will you get used to it. Like at some point it will be like, yeah, I'll just eyeball it. It's okay. I still try to be as precise as possible, and sometimes I'm cursing when I use Max. I still miss some of Rhino's functions, but it is the way it is. I don't regret it, to be honest. You say, thank you, Theo, for your input. I buy sometimes 3ds Max models and then create a VR scene in order to import them. Yeah, if you want to import them right away and don't want to change anything about them, it works. But I usually, as I have often told you guys, I usually adapt my models a lot. So yeah, this doesn't work with a VR scene. At least it didn't back then. But yeah, let's move on to Marcelo, who shares something very relevant. It's an article with some really valid generalistic points regarding the creation of 3D visualizations. Let's take a quick look at it. There is even, it's from Alex from River Black. There are also lots of images, so it's not just, boring text, but you can also often see what he's talking about. In the end, there even is this video about creating good neutral lighting in Corona, which I also can very much recommend. It's not a long read, but it makes some really valid points. So if you haven't checked it, really do so, and maybe give Marcelo some love for sharing this. And hey, by the way, hi Flatson. Now we move on to Kulade. I met him in the VW Art Club, where I gave him some written feedback, and he wanted me to become his mentor, which I don't have really the time for to be somebody's mentor. So I invited him to our Chaos Campus group so that I can maybe provide feedback to him occasionally through the show. So he immediately joined. On the last show, it would have been way too long if I had talked about his project, so I skipped it and gave him some written feedback. But today we get to talk about his work. He describes it like this: hello everyone, interior minimalistic render. The first image is my attempt on storytelling. It's in 3ds Max, Chaos, Corona, and Photoshop. Criticisms are welcome. So nice description. We know the software combination. We also know that you're open for criticism, which always shows some great attitude of an artist. I assume this is a personal exercise, but it might also be a commercial work. So please in future add this info as well as some background info, always gladly seen. Regarding the image presentation, it's okayish. Mostly it's visually consistent with the exception of the first shot, but it's also kind of repetitive. Like we see this bad situation 3 times and 2 times the same, like hi-fi TV wall situation. So it's a bit repetitive. And generally, why do I speak about this presentation of your description and your images is that I just reflect what I personally experience. So, I tend to provide a lot of feedback, not only here, but also in the VW Art Club. And when I do so, I go through the projects, and there are some projects that really don't catch my interest. And these projects are usually the ones where there are so repetitions like this. So when I see it, I have the feeling that I have seen everything, and it's going to be very repetitive and a bit of a waste of my time if I actually click on the images and go through them enlarged. So I don't do it. And because I think that it's better for you if you make the presentation of your images more exciting so that people actually click on them and view them up close or enlarged. This is why I try to always reflect on how you present your images. So then, let's take a look at the shots one by one, starting with this one that you call the first image being your attempt on storytelling. Now, looking at it, I gotta ask myself what makes it a storytelling one and what story you are telling with it. Because what I see is that it has a lot of noise, probably added in post-production. It has some fisheye distortion. It has this heavy vignetting. And to be honest, what this reminds me of is actually a peephole. Just a peephole. You see the vignetting, you see the distortion, the fisheye distortion, the noise. But I'm not sure why this is storytelling and how it fits the scene in this case. So yeah, I wouldn't call it as storytelling, and I would just move on to the next one. Now, here we have a central perspective shot, a nice one of this bedroom, minimalistic bedroom. I really dig this back wall design, maybe without the marble part, but there's topography lines, I would gladly call them, add some really nice dynamic to the whole concept, not only to the visuals, but also to the concept as such. Because they are like, first of all, they're diagonal, and then they're not just straight lines, but they are just like wilding around. So they very nicely break the monotony of a back wall without being too intrusive. Like this part here, this is very strong, this is room defining, but those here, they're easy to make. You can just make them at home, to be honest. But I personally enjoy them a lot. It's the best design for urban architect or something like this. Also, the assets that you have used, the bed, but also the nightstands and this one, they seem to be of pretty decent quality and also very nicely fit together architecturally. The parquet, it looks really bad. This really definitely needs to fix it because the grouts are unrealistically large. The beveling is way too strong. It looks like this is like the default value, even though the default value of floor generator is actually 0.2. So this is just too big. As I always used to make it like so that you can imagine it, just imagine the smallest coin that you have in your wallet and then try to imagine dropping it on this floor. If it disappears in a grout, then you didn't do it right. If somebody lays down parquet in this way, they should be fired, okay? The parquet laid correctly has almost no grouts. You see the different boards, but you see almost no grouts, right? So please don't overdo it and please fix it because the parquet is visible on all the images and kind of ruins them all, which is a pity because they are actually there are pretty good images here. The lighting is okay-ish, but kind of melancholic, to be honest. Like it's almost making me sad in this case. Maybe it's because of the like slightly sepia tone mapping. And what I can also recommend you is to have a fill light because you see the parts, the side here, which isn't lit up from the right, from the main light source coming from the outside, is very, very dark. So to brighten up those shadowy areas, just add a fill light somewhere beside the camera. The third shot, it's more or less same as the previous one when it comes to its contents, just angled. The camera positioning adds some further dynamic in combination with these topography lines in the back, which is a good thing. But now we see this very strong overexposure around the windows, on the floor, and also on the bed. So given that you're a Corona user, use highlight compression in the video frame buffer with a value of up to 7. Also, gladly reduce the intensity of your light source. And again, in addition, use this fill light that I just recommended you to so that these areas here aren't as dark. Oh, and yeah, when you have something like this, similar to what I said to Alessio, gladly just put an HDRI on the outside. You can wash it out if you want, but just have something visible on the outside because it's really seldomly that it's just pure whiteness, right? We're not in paradise or something. Then we have the low board with TV situation that we just saw through the peephole in the beginning. It's a nice central perspective on a situation like this. To me personally, the proportions seem to be slightly off because I assume that this is a door and a door is at least 2 meters of height. With a frame, it should be actually more than that. So you see that this, either the proportions are off or this is some really huge ass TV. Also, it seems, talking about proportions, it seems that it's one of those situations where camera clipping is being used, which makes the distance between the camera, or let's say because I assume this is like the opposite side of the bed, so this makes the distance, because we see no bed here in the front, so it looks like the distance between the end of the bed and this TV and low board situation is something like 5 meters, which is over the top, and I personally don't buy it. Also, you have this empty, boring foreground where nothing happens, which isn't so great regarding your framing and composition. Also, the low board itself looks very empty. You have put some nice stuff on it. This is cool, but in it you also have to place some things like books, techniques, a gaming console and stuff like this. And maybe enough for this one. And then we have the last shot with the Hans Wegner chair. It's actually a good one. The camera could have been a bit lower, maybe a bit closer, but it is also okay as it is. And generally speaking, apart from the storytelling shot, I would say it's a very solid exercise of yours. You should definitely fix the floor and gladly do some reading on the topic of storytelling. And for this one, I will share with you an article. It's called How to Add Storytelling to Your Archviz Renders. It's by the Garage Farm. So it's a really nice read. I went through it yesterday. There are very nice explanations on why this is important and how it can be done. So let's see. Flatson has something interesting to share. He says, "Hi Theo, how are you, bro? So how is our progress here in the community? That is something I would like to know from you. How is the evolution of the most active people here in the community?" Well, this is I didn't expect this question, to be honest. But to be honest, I mean, the group definitely has risen up from the dead since the show started, and it made some of you also wake up and become very active. Like some of you, like Abderrahman here, and you, and also Mario in the group chat, Casper as well, Danushka in the Keeping It Realistic chat that you see here. Also, generally, there are more projects, there is more interesting stuff in the group, I would say. Now, regarding your question, how is the evolution of the most active people here in the community? Like some of you, this is for me like the best experience. Some of you who actually started being unsure of their skills, or maybe not being so skilled and so good, after a few shows actually managed to make it big, to make it me talk mostly positively about their work and very much praise them, which to me is just incredible, because just within a few shows to see such growth is just amazing. Also, since the challenges are there, I see a lot of people putting a lot of effort. I see also a lot of people, a lot of members of this group doing their best to actually implement what we talk about in these shows. So writing a lot better descriptions. We almost have no descriptions, like it's my last project, as we did prior to the show. And now most people, especially the ones who have been watching the show for a few times already, they actually try to put in the effort to make good descriptions, good presentations of their works. It's mostly like new people who have just came to the group who do this. This is my latest work descriptions. The people who watch the show actually seem to learn from it and seem to improve through it, which it's not about it's my show and see how cool it is. It's about us actually growing. It's with the show this whole movement started, this whole evolution, as you called it, and I see it with a lot of artists. Now, you especially, I have known you before the show started, and you are keeping your constant good quality, which is like the way I expect it to be. If an artist is already skilled and seasoned to a certain degree, then the steps aren't that big and that visible, the steps ahead. It's just the way it is. It's like a very obese person that wants to lose weight, a very obese person, talking something like 300 kilo or something, they can actually lose 10 kilo in a week. But if you are not obese, if you have like your, I don't know, correct BMI, or the way, I don't know how to politically correct put it, but and if you want to lose weight, then it's way slower, way more difficult. It needs way more effort. So this is how it is. In the beginning, the steps are way larger, way more visible. But once you reach a certain level, as you have, the steps are way smaller. But I see them; they are there, and I think because this is the last but one show for this year. We only have the next show, which will be the last for this year. And for the next one, I'm very positive what to expect. In the beginning with this show, I was really uncertain. I didn't know if people will actually watch it. I wasn't sure if it will have some impact, or I will be just talking to the air and nothing will change. But actually, a lot changed for the positive. The group is more active. A lot of people who made it for the first time are actually amazed by how much help, feedback is provided here. So yeah, I don't know if this answers your question. I talk a lot. I just talk through what I think, because I have to improvise. I don't have notes for what you just asked me, but to me, I definitely see evolution in this group. And I obviously have some behind the curtains knowledge regarding the future of the group, but I cannot tell you what exactly, but I can tell you that there are further plans and that even more stuff is about to happen in this group. The challenges will keep coming. The more you're interested in them, the more you participate, the more we will provide you with such challenges. Sometimes they will be bi-monthly, other times it will be just a monthly challenge, but we will always have some interesting topic for you to work with or work on. Also, we will discuss it. I mean, me and Chaos, we will discuss it if we maybe introduce something like project of the week or project of the month, similar as we have it in the VW Art Club. So yeah, there is a bright future in front of this group, and this is my absolute sincere opinion. We're keeping it realistic here. I tell you the things the way I see them. You did see me criticize Chaos Group for not picking the best promotional image. So I don't care who you are. I always will be honest with you. This is like the essence of this show. So yeah, I hope I answered your question. You can gladly let me know what you think about the evolution of the most active people and the community in general. In the meantime, what we have here before we finish, because I wanted to finish earlier so that you have a bit of a pause until the upcoming Corona 11 webinar. We only have this Lily from the 4 Pixels Academy sharing another one of the series of those sped up videos, where this time they're showcasing a very large scale, very urbanistic project in the making. You can maybe extract some general ideas from the video, because they've put this whole project into 2.5 minutes. So obviously you cannot learn that much specific small things, but maybe really extract these major ideas. And if not, I mean, you have just made a 2.5 minute pause watching a sped up creation video. And with this being said, we're actually finished for today. Again, before we end the session, one last reminder for the upcoming Corona 11 live webinar with Tom Grimes, which starts in 20 minutes exactly. So I want to give you this time to regain yourself, take a drink or something, maybe do some work, and then I hope to meet you all in the webinar. So stay safe, have a good rest of the week. Oh, what? It started already? Why did it start? Oh, come on. Okay, if it started, so then let me finish quickly. Hope to see you again next Tuesday, same place and same time for the last show of the year. Rock on, ciao, let's go watch Tom Grimes. Bye, folks.